understand all the facts before we get to a conclusion here. You were previously in the Navy SEALs. How long were you in the military, sir?
92 through the end of 96.
Okay. What is the average time, having been in the SEALs, perhaps you would know this, what's the average time a special forces operator is in the service?
5-6 years up to 20. It really varies.
But based on your experience,
guys really make a decision point at about 12 years whether they're going to stay for a career or whether they get out. So I'd say 10 to 12 years. Let's
say an operator retires from the military, at which point a Navy SEAL, average Navy SEAL, is doing a much different operation. They're dealing with explosives rather than defensive caravans and convoys. What do you do with those individuals? Do you take Navy SEALs and put them right in there, right out onto the streets? Is there training from Blackwater?
The personnel that deploy for us, they go through, obviously we've got the resumes, we do a criminal background check on them. When they've been accepted, when the resume has been accepted by the customer, they come in for training. They go through another 164 hours of training and vetting at Blackwater. Tactics, techniques, procedures, driving, firearms, defensive tactics. They go through a full psychological evaluation, medical, dental exam, physical tests, shooting tests. There is a very, very rigorous pre-deployment program they all have to do.
A significant amount of expense.
Yes.
All right.
And that's all baked into that.
All right.
Daily cost.
Just for the record, when was Blackwater formed?
1997.
At what point did you receive your first government contract?
For the first number of years, our customers were individual SEAL platoons or a Marine Recon platoon or an A-team, and it was down to the individual team sergeant or warrant officer paying with a credit card. Our first big government contract that we won competitively was the Navy force protection contract that they started off after the Cole was blown up. We had a $1.5 billion ship blown up by two guys in a Zodiac.
What year was that?
We started that in 2001.
Okay. Who was your client in Iraq?
Department of State.
Okay. How many competitors do you have within this contract?
There are two others.
Two others.
And there was a big competition before then to be down selected for the WPPS contract.
And how is that contract awarded?
It's awarded competitively. You go through a enormous proposal process. They come and inspect your facilities, your training standards, the resumes of each of your personnel. They even have to accept and inspect the resumes of the instructors you're going to have, and they come and audit the program on an almost weekly basis. Okay.
So let's go forward. There's roughly 1,000 Blackwater contractors, operators. These former veterans that you or veterans that you now have trained that are out securing embassy staff and a number of civilians in Iraq. Let's say it's 1,000, just for purposes here. Roughly how much administrative staff do you have associated with those 1,000 individuals?
We run that whole program, instructors, program management people, that sort of thing, with less than 50 people.
With less than 50 people?
Yes, sir. So
roughly it's 1,000 to 50 is the ratio from operators in the fields to administrative staff?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now there's this notion, we're not the Armed Services Committee here, but there's this notion of tooth to tail ratio, which means how many operators do you have in the field and the expense of them, how much administrative functions do you have. In the active duty military, based on your recollection, what is that rough estimate?
What's the DoD's tooth to tail ratio?
Yes.
I've seen as high as 8 to 1 or even 12 to 1.
Okay.
One tooth, 8 to 10, 12 tail.
So one individual in the field, the expense of having that one operator in the field, it is far less for an individual contractor. When you're a private security contractor like you are in Iraq, it's far more efficient for the total program to have a contractor because their tooth-to-tail ratio is far better than what it is in the active duty military. Therefore, the cost of that one operator in the field for all the support services they have associated with them is far less for a company like Blackwater than it is for the active duty military. And can you, my time is up, but if you can actually discuss this with the committee and maybe in a minute or so explain the expense of the overall operations.
All I would say is
Gentleman's time's up, but Mr. Prince,
I would just
please go ahead
encourage
and answer.
the committee, and we'd be happy to make some suggestions on areas where you could do a true activity-based cost study. What does it cost the U.S. government to do XYZ functions in the field and do an accurate drill down? Because unless you know what something costs, everything before that or after that is hyperbole.
Is it your contention that it's far cheaper for you to operate in the field? I just wanted to answer this question, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
You didn't
Is
answer
it your
me.
contention that it's much cheaper to the taxpayers for your activities as a contractor with the Department of State than it would be for active duty military to do the very same task because of that tooth-to-tail ratio?
Yes, and because it's tough for the military to be all things to all people all the time. If they're going to continue to have air defense artillerymen, all the other conventional warfare qualifications they have to have, it's tough for them to do all things all the time.
If you have some kind of document that backs up your statement, we certainly would like to see it, and we'd like to ask you to provide it to our committee.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. McCollum?